Hello everyone, welcome back to Weaving Web 3. We are here with the amazing Kevin, co-founder of Ooga Booga. So, what is Ooga Booga? Why should we be excited about it? And why Berachain?
Yeah, no, 100%. Stanley, thank you for having me on today. I think that I can dive into a bit about myself first,
Absolutely.
and then we can talk quickly about Ooga Booga. So, a bit about myself. I previously founded a protocol called GridX. It was a fully on-chain order book protocol for EVM. Couldn't find PMF for it, so was looking around for sort of other opportunities out there, saw movements, saw Berachain, landed on Berachain, and, was about a year ago now, and I saw that it had really, really good potential in terms of the cultish behavior, the sort of the gathering around worshipping the bearers and burning guitar NFTs and stuff like this, right? And so I decided it was the best place to build. Then I sort of thought, okay, what did my previous project not do well? It was we couldn't find PMF. And so for this project, we tried to look for the substance which could generate the most PMF possible, right? And in that case, it was the DEX aggregator, right? Because no matter if you're using DPIN, Sci-Fi, ReFi, DeFi, SocialFi, whatever it is, right?
Absolutely.
You have to make a swap, right? And so when investors or when people ask me what is my total addressable market, I'm like, okay, what if it's every user, right? If you come onto a blockchain, there's no way you don't make a swap, right? As I said, no matter what sort of niche you're using. And so when your total addressable market is everyone, I think the goal and sort of achievement of total PMF is achieved.
No,
right?
I totally agree with you. And I think the biggest problem is the whole fragmentation, right? There's so many DEXs, there's so many protocols out there. And it often is the problem where you're going to make a swap and you're like, hang on a second, I just could have got a better rate over there. And like being an aggregator of everything just makes life simple, right? At the end of the day, we want those people to be like, I want the best and the most out of my assets.
Yeah.
So what do you think is like the biggest problem and like the biggest like pro building something like this?
The biggest problem in what sense?
Like, what are the hurdles do you think is like trying to get people involved within your project or trying to find new partners to aggregate? What do you think is just a thing that you realize this is not as easy as I thought?
Well, I think that when I first stepped out to build the aggregator, I had the most common misconception that I could just go to every DEX or every sort of liquidity source that I wanted to aggregate and call quote, like a function just called quote. And, I get like $1 from this place, $2 from this place, and $1.5 from this place, and I could just compare it. But no, that was like somewhat like, no, very naive actually, because obviously that doesn't work. And what you have to do actually is you have to like model like the extreme like intricacies of how the liquidity is placed. And like, let's say it's like a V3 fork of Uni, and it's like, you have to see like, if I make a 0.1% swap, how that moves this liquidity and this tick. And so for every liquidity source, whether that's like a 4626 wrapper, whether that's like wrapping into a vault, a bonding curve, or a DEX, or an order book DEX, or an AMM, whatever it is, right? You have to really, really understand the sort of like intricacies of the logic that goes into it. And so that's definitely a problem that I didn't envision when I first stepped out to build the DEX aggregator. But now after building it, me and my team have realized that it's really not that easy, especially as with DEX aggregators, right? The back end of all DEX aggregators is all closed source. So no matter whether you look at sort of like ODOS, 1inch, Matcha, 0x, Parasol, all of that is off chain and sort of like closed source. The way that it works is that you have this on-chain component and you have an off-chain component. And the on-chain component sort of just works like a wrapper. And the off-chain component is sort of like generating all these possibilities of the roots and modeling all the liquidity and then sending it to the on-chain component. And the primary function of the on-chain component is just like a sort of slippage checker. You know, when you make a swap on Uniswap or any sort of front end and it says minimum amount out, that's that. Right. So if your transaction sort of doesn't achieve the $100 that it quoted as the minimum amount out, the whole thing gets reverted, and that's the biggest sort of slippage guard. So that's the biggest protection against like hacks, right? It doesn't matter if your sort of off-chain component is malicious. If the minimum amount out and the specific ERC20 that was specified isn't achieved, the whole thing gets reverted, and you can actually see that in a lot of wallets these days, because they sort of like they show that.
Yeah, no, for sure. Interesting. So, do you think that's like a kind of like a problem? Because there's, for me, like sometimes people say closed source software. They're like a bit scared of it. What's behind it? But I understand for you, that's your ticker that makes you you. Do you think that means people need to make sure that you're more trusted?
I think that it's so to address your latter point about trust.
Yeah.
I think that obviously we try to work in a trustless environment, being in DeFi and stuff. And the way that the slippage guard works on the on-chain contract works, it's okay because number one, of the minimum amount out, and number two, the ERC20 token that you specified is achieved, then everything is fine. I think that the fact that all DEX aggregators have a closed source off-chain component makes the competition actually more healthier, right? So everyone is sort of algorithmically like trying to quantitatively sort of like push forward the algorithms, right? How do you generate at the end of the day, it's just trying to calculate or try and minimize or maximize something, right? Either minimize slippage and maximize the amount out, or whatever it is, right? It's a minimization maximization problem. So I think that everything being closed source actually drives competition further.
Okay, interesting. That's a nice way to see that. So with Ooga Booga, how would you like to see users using you? Would you want to be the one goes to golden market that I want token X, and then bam, I'm going to get it? Or do you have like any interesting functions that you are working on that you could potentially tell people about?
Yeah, no, I think there's two channels so to address, I think your question is a multifaceted question, right? There's two parts, right? The first part is about like where do we see users using us, and the second part is do we have any additional sort of functionality that could entice users to use us, right?
Absolutely.
And to address your first part, the DEX aggregator has two channels, right? The first one is the front end, and that's where users can come and make swaps, and it's kind of like your normal thing. We envision ourselves as the swap liquidity hub, right? You want to make a swap, you come to Ooga Booga. Like, I mean, it's like booking a flight. You don't go directly to British Airways, right?
Absolutely.
You always use Skyscanner because you want to see like
the best flights.
The best flights, obviously. If you could get a better price, like as to human nature, why the fuck wouldn't you, right?
It makes
Why
sense.
the fuck wouldn't you, right? And to address your second point about sort of additional features, I think that the playbook which Jupiter ran on Solana is very interesting, and it's something that we're trying to replicate as well. Jupiter on Solana sort of established themselves as the home liquidity hub on Solana with their swaps, and they dominated the swaps. Then they released Jup Sol, which was like a LSD, and that's like a 800 mil market cap FDV now, right? And then they released the launch pad, which is insanity, right? Which makes them like worth 10% of Sol's FDV, which is like 10 bill.
It's crazy.
Yeah, 10 bill to 100 bill, right? It's insane. And then they have a bunch of other stuff. They have the DCA, they have the limit orders, they have the ape, the terminal stuff, the perps, which have generated like 180 million fees as well, right? Which is insane. Which all goes back to like sort of like accrues to the token and whatnot, and JLP and stuff. So we view sort of like the swaps as our stepping stone to actually get into the Berachain ecosystem, which I think we have done for the native sort of Berachain ecosystem right now. What we're more considering is sort of the growth strategy when Berachain mainnet comes and that influx of new users and new liquidity comes. How we're going to tackle sort of gaining those users' trust and getting those users to use us. But while still also following Jupiter's strategy of launching multiple new products and taking advantage of the home turf advantage which we have from that swap advantage.
Bam, that is awesome. So I want to now kind of move forward in combining Berachain with Ooga Booga. What things would it be possible that what isn't a, let's say the Jupiter model follows, you can do on the proof of liquidity?
Yeah, so I think we don't directly tackle proof of liquidity. I think that the main benefit of us building on Berachain is that number one, we were early, and number two, we have so many close partners that are so willing to work with us. I don't think that actually exists anywhere else on the ecosystem, right? You try and build something on Sol, you try and build something on Optimism, like it's
very competitive.
It's very competitive, and everyone's sort of like this. There's a strong aggression between builders. Everyone sees each other as competition. But whereas in Berachain, everyone is, maybe it's because it's testnet stage, I'm not sure.
Mainnet launches
mainnet launches, everyone's cutting at each other's throat, right? But maybe it's testnet stage, but that's one of the advantages of being early, right? And so we are able to collaborate so easily with other protocols, and what that means for us, specifically at the technical level, is that we're able to integrate a lot of things that previously weren't able to be integrated, such as like super specific bonding curves with floors and ceiling prices, or very very intricate 4626 wrappers and stuff like this. It's very interesting, right? Previously in other ecosystems, because no one was willing to share what they were building and being super secretive, no one's able to do it, right? The 4626 wrapper, which I mentioned, is sort of like, the 4626 standard is essentially the standard where if you deposit into a vault, you get back an LP receipt token showing your sort of share of the vault, right? And so what that means is that not only are we able to look for the liquidity based on the initial, but also the LP receipt token.
Okay.
So an example of this is a protocol in Berachain called WeBera. And if you have honey and you deposit into their vault, you get back honey. But not only are we able to search for the liquidity of the honey, but also the honey now in the ecosystem, right? So it's the same example as sort of like ETH and STETH,
for sure.
right? So wrapping the physical functionality of wrapping from ETH to STETH and searching for both sides of that liquidity is what we love and what we can do. But that's not the best, right? I mean, other people have achieved this. We sort of like, we like to position ourselves in the aggregator ecosystem as like 3 tiers, right? First tier is like the standard stuff, the AMMs, the order books, the UniV2 forks, the UniV3 forks, standard stuff. Every order book, every aggregator has that,
for sure,
right? The second tier is sort of the wrapping of assets, ETH to STETH, ETH to RETH, honey to honey, whatever it is, right? And then the third tier, which I don't think any other aggregator in the ecosystem is doing, or in crypto itself is doing, is integrating protocol-specific logic.
Yes.
So really, really diving deep into like exactly what the protocol does, and if there is even like a two-way swap function, let alone even just a one-way swap function, or one-way conversion function, we can integrate it, right?
Okay, interesting.
Because of the way that the EVM works, you can really, really easily like multi-call and bundle stuff together, which we really like.
Okay, and what does that open up to, let's say, the users, and how would they benefit from that?
Well, it means that I think on the daily, I don't think that these integrations get used, but specifically on black swan events, let's say that one stablecoin in the ecosystem gets liquidated, or someone was like super, super leveraged up and one stablecoin gets liquidated and like peg falls, these sort of integrations really, really come into play because a lot of like previously untapped liquidity will suddenly be tapped in, right? So for example, like normally a specific integration, a tier 3 integration which we're doing is, for example, like a lending market or a money market, right? If you open a position on Aave or a lending market or anything like that, you get back an LP receipt token. Like let's say you see like USDC has like a 15% APY right now, you just tend to lend your tokens out and then you get back a USDC on Aave, right? Which is the LP receipt token. Now, normally, because actually aside from that example, right? Normally because if there's an LTV sort of a rate, maybe there's like an 80% LTV rate, maybe sort of borrowing against that position or whatever it is doesn't make sense because you put in like 100% of your assets and then you take out 80% of the assets. It never really makes sense in a DEX aggregated circumstance, right? But in a black swan event, maybe it does. Right?
Yeah, okay. I see that. That makes a lot of sense, for sure. Okay, so I kind of read your white paper a bit, and would you be able to explain to people what zaps are? Because something that I find really interesting, and in a way it saves a lot of people time, is what is a zap?
Yeah, so a zap is a sort of a concept by itself, right? And a zap is a DeFi concept, which basically means that you can bundle and multi-call two things together. So let's say you want to deposit into a vault which only accepts certain whitelisted collateral, such as WBTC, but you only have USDT. So what you can do is step 1, swap the USDT into WBTC. Step 2, then LP the WBTC into the vault, right? Because now, because of how the EVM functions, right, you can bundle all these two things together instead of having to, you open your wallet twice and then do that twice. Instead, you can just do it once, right?
Interesting. So is there anything else that you would be, let's say, looking forward to build on top of that, or in new types of functionalities that could be possible in Berachain?
I think that Zaps is more of a general concept. I think it's something that if a protocol wants to integrate our swap API and wants to do on their own accord, it's something that they can do, but it's not a functionality that Ooga Booga is specifically going to go ahead and do themselves. Because if a protocol such as Canary Protocol wants to integrate Zaps, right? It's more of their coders or their developers are writing that functionality.
Okay, interesting. That's cool. So let's move slightly towards now, let's say the proof of liquidity versus proof of stake. what is the biggest flaws right now that we see in proof of stake compared to proof of liquidity? Because something that I found really interesting at ECC is proof of stake is overpaying for economic security, right?
Absolutely.
And so much more money is being wasted. So would you be able to explain, let's say, your aspects, or let's say your view of the proof of liquidity model?
Well, I think that the biggest emphasis here is that, like, on proof of stake chains, especially in Cosmos as well, validators just sit on their fucking ass and don't do shit. They don't do shit, and the money just pours in, right? And especially if you have a precedence, right? If you have a name brand for yourself, right? New Cosmos chain launches, you launch a new validator, and all the delegations start flowing in, and you just make money.
Yeah,
that's like it. That's it, right? Which, fair enough. That's the dominance which has been achieved. That's how, like, the sort of industry has flowed towards, kind of like the KEXs, right? KEXs just have that dominance where they can charge those listing fees of up to like $1 million for every listing, right?
That's crazy.
But what proof of liquidity is trying to change is get these guys off their asses and really, really make them really proactive, right? And so previously there wasn't a connection between validation and liquidity, but with proof of liquidity, as per in the name, right, you have the interconnection between the liquidity, the validators, and also the users. So it's that complete circle. Whereas in proof of stake, there isn't a circle, right? This is really, really exemplified. I heard that there was like 5,000 validators on the waiting list.
Really?
For the Berachain to become a Berachain validator, right? And they kicked a bunch of people out. Like that, if you like had like less than like, I think it was like 99% like uptime, you got kicked out of the program or something like that. So they got super, super strict. Now everyone's in, right? It's like it's kind of like that really hot girl in high school, right? Like or that hot girl at school, right? Where like no one can get her, which is why everyone wants her, right? That's Berachain right now.
No, that's what I mean. Like, Berachain is, I think, some of the most smartest people in all the industry have come together, and it's like no bullshit, right? Everyone's working hard. Everyone's creating innovative technology that people wanted to build, but they couldn't. And the community, degenerates, we love them, yeetards, everyone, Booga Booga, like, I think there is nothing like this out there. And I think because of that, Berachain is absolutely going to succeed. Where do you think that we will be best, like, valued within the proof of liquidity model? Because right now, I just trade, I had liquidity sources, I just don't feel like part of it. I feel like people are constantly being, like, taken advantage of. And within the proof of liquidity, there's 3 tokens, right? Bera, Honey, and BGT, right? So how do people benefit from this tri-model system?
Well, yeah, I think that the benefit is that it's a dual token model. Like, aside from the stablecoin itself, which is just like I feel like it's just like proof of liquidity can't exist without Honey. Honey, it can definitely exist without Honey, and I feel like it's more of a marketing tool because sort of like institutions and corporations really like stablecoins. Like, if you want to do something with Google, if you want to do something with like Amazon or whatever, right? It's like, it's very useful to have a stablecoin which like can be branded and whatnot, right?
Yeah.
To address the latter part of the question about like how you can be most benefited from the 2 token model, I get the reduced version of the 3 token model, the 2 token model.
Yeah.
I think it would be the same as every user, right? You want to get BGT, and you want to stack BGT as much as possible, because that is the most valuable thing in the Berachain ecosystem.
Okay, would you be able to explain to maybe some users that may not know what the BGT and Bera model works? Would you be able to maybe explain some of that?
Yeah, so by providing liquidity within the Berachain ecosystem, you can earn the native governance token, which is non-transferable, which is called BGT. And then from BGT, you can delegate that to validators, which basically from the more delegations which the validators get, they can sort of direct more BGT to different liquidity pools, and then you can take a cut from the validators, and then you keep on earning more and more rewards from delegating your BGT.
Okay, fascinating. So, if I was a new user coming into Berachain, where would you recommend them to go first? Where do you think they should test out?
Yeah, no, I think that the benefits of Berachain is that there's so much community-built ecosystem resources. 2 of the biggest community hubs, I would say, is the Honey Jar. I'm sure you've seen that one.
Yes, absolutely.
And Beraland. And then, for example, if you're in Asia, someone like TTT Labs, those guys are really, really great. And Berachain for the Chinese. These guys are really good as well. And you can just, they have like tons of guides, tons of resources you can look through. And it's super, super useful. For sure.
Appreciate on that. Definitely people need to check that out. So where do we think Berachain is going to be in 6 months' time? Hopefully Q5 has
Not
happened.
launched.
Right?
Not
Yeah,
launched.
Q5. That's it, right. Q6, Q7, right.
Did you see the Polymarket shit?
Yeah, I'm betting on that. I'm like, I said
You're betting no?
Yeah, I'm betting no.
Oh, okay,
like,
okay,
I'm
okay.
like, I'm a degen, right?
Oh, okay,
if I'm
okay,
gonna
okay.
lose all my money, like, I bet all yes on
Okay.
Trump,
I
right?
checked that yesterday. It's like, I guess, like if you bet $1,000, you can get like 1.2k, right?
Yeah.
That's like what 20% yield in 1 month, which is like if you stretch that out, that's over 100% yield.
Yeah.
APY.
It's pretty decent, right? Like,
It's pretty decent, but you're risking 1,000 for 200. Because at the end of the day, remember this Polymarket, you could lose it all as well.
yeah.
Whereas like in normal stablecoin yield farming, like you maybe perhaps can't lose it. You just lose. the
Yeah,
yield.
no, you're right. But did you see the fight against Ansem and Bitboy yesterday? There's this guy who bet 4 mil and he said, "Oh, I'm gonna get 10 mil back," and they drew, right? So
Yeah.
pretty much everyone lost,
Yeah.
right? So that kind of makes me like,
You know, that's interesting because I originally thought that Polymarket basically just, if it's a yes/no sort of binary option, I thought they'd just take all the money as revenue. Like, let's say there's like 10 million in bet on the book, right? I thought they'd just take it all instead of like resolving 50-50. There would be so much profit, I'm telling you.
maybe you should design something like that on Berachain, right?
But I mean, like, if there's already a better sort of use case, then I guess people are already going to use
Oh,
that.
damn.
Yeah.
What were you excited about?
Speaking of betting markets and
Yeah.
binary option markets,
Ooh.
I think there's some really cool betting markets on Berachain, right? Sort of like being able to bet on anything. I believe there's this one backed by Polychain. I believe it's called Overlay Protocol.
Okay.
Where you can sort of bet on CS:GO, you can bet on CS:GO skins, you can bet on
okay,
any of
here
these
we
stuff,
go.
right? So I really like that.
That's
I
for
believe
me.
they made like a really last minute switch over to Berachain. They were originally building on something else. They have really good backers. And they're building something which I don't think anyone else has done before. I think the biggest problem which they're trying to solve is trying to establish liquidity for these things. Because when you want to, like, let's say that there's one side of the market which wants to bet on something, the hardest part is finding the counterparty, right? You need someone to bet against. Right? If you don't have anyone to bet against, what are you betting against? The fucking thin air, right? It's the same with like people trying to find like leverage on meme coins, right? Because it's the long tail assets, right?
Yeah.
People want to find leverage, but who are you betting against, right? Who's your counterparty here? And that's also something that's really interestingly being solved on Berachain as well through like exponents, right?
How'd you solve that then?
Exponents solves it through exponents is a protocol built by Ryan Park,
Okay.
and it uses IBC curves, which are inverse bonding curves, and it sort of incentivizes two communities to bet against each other. Let's say you have like Pepe versus Doge. Perhaps the Pepe guys incentivize the Doge people to short, and the Doge people incentivize the Pepe guys to short, right? Or long, whatever it is, right? Like two competing communities competing for liquidity. Not specifically sure how it works, but I believe that's the sort of high level overview. Ryan is actually the founder of Anchor. Do you remember Anchor?
Oh yes, okay.
There's like 50 bill in there last cycle, or 15 bill or something last cycle in there. Yeah. So he's super competent. Yeah.
Okay, so you'll be cooking. So it's
he'll be
something to
cooking.
definitely check out. Then.
Yeah,
Oh
yeah,
man,
definitely.
like I don't know. For me personally, I'm just here for the vibes, right? Like I love the people. Like I didn't realize I could find people who are just like as fucked up as me, right? Like I used to be so bored in these normal communities. I've left pretty much every single like normie Discord, and like with Berachain, it's like it's just have fun. You meet her. Like the events are awesome.
Yeah.
Like I could not meet a bunch of smarter people out here.
Mm-hmm.
So where are we going next?
Where are we going next in terms of Berachain or
Berachain life? Where do you want to end up?
I think with Ooga Booga, we want to end up as the sort of like the place where you can do the most interesting things. I think that the way that Jupiter played it out, you know, they launched the swaps, and then they launched like some other products which are sort of boring. You know, the perps isn't exactly innovative.
Yeah.
It's like JLP. It's like, you know, it's not that innovative. And then you have like the DCA, like the limit orders. You have the Launchpad. You have the Ape Terminal, which is basically a copy of Pumped Up Fun. You know, trying to ride on that bandwagon. And then you have the LST. Nothing specifically innovation out there. But what we do have is we're cooking something big. We're cooking something big.
Can you tease anything, or you're not allowed to tease anything?
Well, let's just say Yeah, I can't tease
Okay.
anything. I can't tease anything.
No,
Yeah.
okay, that's true.
But let's just say that anyone that invested in the seed round is extremely lucky to have gotten a
Can I
very
invest?
valuation. No,
How
it's
can I-
closed. It's closed. It's closed. It's closed. It's closed.
Oh, no.
But yeah, if I was an investor and I sort of invested in Ooga Booga in the seed round, I'd be delighted.
Oh, okay.
Absolutely delighted. It was a sweetheart of a deal. Yeah.
Okay, I'm jealous now.
But so, Stani, let's talk a little bit about what you're building, right? So you're working on this new protocol called Canary, right?
Yeah, so basically, Canary is a unified restaking protocol where essentially we aggregate all the restaking protocols into one unified SDK. So it's essentially, we call it the one SDK to rule them all. Because right now, one of the problems with building AVSs is, let's say you're building on infrastructure A, I'm not going to say whoever, but let's say the restaking protocol goes down. And all those infrastructure, all the AVS built onto are gone, right? So why not aggregate the aggregators? Why not have it all into one unified API where we design the templates, the slashing, the infrastructure, all the backend? Because building usually takes months and you have all the overheads. So what we've designed, or we're designing, is essentially a plug and play tool where you use our SDK and we deal with all the backend. So that eliminates the months of building, the worrying how your validators are being malicious or not. And within that whole thing, we use TE, Trusted Execution Environment, which essentially will allow you to verify everything on chain within the Trusted Execution Environment in any code and language.
Is there a specific trusted execution environment that you're using?
I don't think I'm allowed to say right now.
Okay.
There's a lot of stuff still in secret, so it's just mainly going out there, saying what we're doing, and we'll be closing like the race soon, so
Absolutely.
that's pretty exciting.
Makes sense. No, I'll be excited to see your raise announcement. I'm sure you're gonna have some really, really good backers
Yeah.
on there. I guess I haven't exactly seen many protocols coming out here with TE, so I'll be excited to see that. How does the fee model work then? So you aggregate everything to an SDK, and then I'm guessing developers sort of pay a certain fee?
Yeah, so essentially there'll be a fee associated within using our SDK, right? So we do all the heavy lifting, and we will charge a fee based on like the usages, and everything else is kind of still in the final process of figuring out which is the best optimal part. But I think it will be a new exciting thing to find because we are officially partnered with Symbiotic. I can't say the other partners, also Layer 0. So essentially that allows us to have that multi-chain infrastructure, essentially, which will make the token transfers from, let's say, the other different chains in without a problem, right? Layer 0 is already be building a DVN on top of us, so we'll have that infrastructure from day one.
No, that makes sense. I mean, I guess... can you provide some insight into like the background of the team? It seems like you guys have like a lot of like solid partnerships just coming out the door here.
Yeah, so literally pretty much every single day throughout December, we'll be announcing all of our like big T1 partnerships. We are releasing just announced we'll be launching on Tyco. So essentially, our founder is ex-Ondo Finance. We have team from Nethermind and some other like startups in the past, and then there's me, just the cool head degen doing fun stuff. But I think the really important thing is a lot of these restaking protocols take everything that you restake, let's say on an L2, back to the L1 Ethereum, right? But that just defeats the whole point because we will be one of the only ones right now that will keep your assets on chain.
Okay.
So essentially, you'll be able to have the security of, let's say, chain X, Y within your AVS on choice, right? So that gives you that flexibility, the modularity, and it gives you shared security, right?
What's your motivation behind launching on Tyco? Because you mentioned that you're launching on Tyco, right?
So yeah, so essentially we will be able to go multi-chain pretty much on any chain in any language. So we'll be able to be on EVM, non-EVM, so Solana, Sui, Aptos, on all those chains, Berachain as well. So I believe fully in the modular society, right? We have currently have Amazon, Apple, they all have their own specialities, right? So some people will still only build on their AVS on chain X or the infrastructure X, but we can essentially allow you to pick and choose, right, in the future.
Do you think that kind of stretches you a little bit thin in terms of ecosystem support? Because I found that a lot of multi-chain builders have found that they lack support from specific foundations. You know, going to every single blockchain foundation and trying to ask for support, and they're like, "Oh, but you're building on them. You're building on them."
Yeah, for sure.
Do you think that sort of stretches you?
Yeah, I think in the end we believe that what we're building is something necessary because people are like, oh, actually, we really need this because you're actually right. We need to aggregate all the security together because it's so fragmented. And because of us, we'll be able to have access to all the unified liquidity into one together. But yeah, there's times where, let's say, Foundation X was like, yeah, we only want you to build on us. But I think I understand it because you want to keep, like, I guess the incentives, the assets on that one chain. But I think that also kind of makes things more fragmented in the sense that you're closing yourself off to that technology, even though it may be suited for that purpose. But what if you actually need to use something else that's only available on a different chain, right? So I definitely think choosing the modular parts is the way forward, right? I could be wrong, but I firmly believe that because the way that we live right now, it is fragmented and it's annoying. And I really want a use case where I just have to be in one place to be access to everything.
And what are you doing with Berachain?
Can't say right now.
Can't say right now?
I can't say right. The thing is, I'm not allowed to say too much. I can only say the overarching story. Like, we were about to announce some partnerships on Berachain, hopefully, and stuff like that. But it is just very not much I'm allowed to say.
Oh, okay. How did the sort of idea come then? Like, how long have you guys been working on this?
Well, I got approached at a random ZK event in London by the founder because apparently he heard of me doing something with someone else, whatever. And then he was like, hey, you want to join the team? I've heard you do good stuff. And he explained to me like what Canary is and the vision, because I was having interviews at other projects as well. And I was like, hang on a second, this actually makes sense, right? I was like, I love the team, like the vision, and like obviously, like I'm the kind of person, like I'm finishing my PhD, right? I understand some engineering tech and stuff like that, and reading into like the project, it's not just another on copy and paste, because I am so fed up of seeing people forking this, launching on Chain-X. I understand you need to build a project, right? To have like some ecosystem usage, you need an RV fork or whatever. But then most people just leave it as that, right?
No,
they don't edit the code or make some innovation. And I was like, this is all new. Like I haven't seen anything like that. So I was like, you know what? Their vision, their plan, I want to be part of it, right? 100%. So it was that's it. That I was just sold on it. I was like, I'm not gonna go to the other interviews I was meant to go to, and I was like, but it genuinely it means, because like some of the other protocols were just literally like, well, I'm not gonna say, but they were just a copy and paste, right?
Makes sense.
So yeah, that's what I really think. I was
anything that you can sort of reveal about token? Is the revenue going to accrue to the token?
Well, like this? I, as a degen, as at heart, I was always an airdrop hunter, right? And if we ever design a point system that may or may not be happening, it's going to be a good one, and I'm going to go for the community.
Don't you think that users are a little bit tired of points? I mean, especially with the Bitcoin ecosystem, right? Like taking like, I think it's like, I'm not too familiar with the Bitcoin ecosystem, but like taking like, I think it's like WBTC and minting it for Solve BTC, and then taking the Solve BTC, minting it for LBTC, then minting it for EBTC, and then restaking that, and then taking like 50 different fucking points. I probably named something incorrectly there, but like...
no, I agree with you. But I think it's come to the point where it's kind of expected from the VCs or like investors. Like you need to have some kind of system in place. Like ideally, I wouldn't have a points. I'm not going to divulge how I'm planning to. But like as a person that's participated in so many different points programs, non-programs, I think there shouldn't even be a points program. The team does it in behind. They decide. They reward the loyal users. And like one thing that I really hate right now is marketing agencies. And I think they're a waste of time.
Piss me off.
So something that we'll be launching at Canary is a grants educational program. So essentially, sorry?
Can I have a grant?
Oh, if you write some educational content. So for people that, let's say, do interesting, fun content about Canary and spread the word to it, they may get and apply for grants to reward them for their loyal support and spreading the word about Canary.
Yeah, no, that's interesting. I mean, do you think that, because Eigenlayer did a pretty interesting sort of approach to that as well, because when they airdrop, right, they manually look through everyone that did content, right, and then airdrop to those people. But in your case, you're sort of reversing the process and you're incentivizing them first to make the content and then doing the content. Do you think that's because of the sort of like the scale at which they're operating compared to you?
So for me, yes, and also like I think we should be rewarding people that actually put the time and effort, because there's so many like I guess smaller content creators out there that actually know a lot more. Like I call them a lot of the influencers, because all they care is about money. All they want to do is get the next publication and stuff, and then most of them don't understand the tech, and like rewarding those smaller users that have the bigger user base, and then the day it works better on the algorithm and so on. But I genuinely think I would rather have 1,000 small users than someone with like 100,000 followers that maybe gives us 20 likes and stuff like that.
But that dynamic is very interesting, right? So essentially you're saying that you would rather reward users that get less views but have better content than people that have less good content but have more views.
Yeah.
Is that what you're saying?
Essentially, that's my aspect of it. Because, like, look, I would say there's a few publications we approached. We want to do press releases. 15,000.
That PR is a fucking.
And I'm like,
scam.
hang on a second.
That whole industry is a fucking scam.
It
bro.
is, and I'm just like, I'm sorry, I do not think that a T1 whatever they call them, T1 publication, that I'm going to be paying £15,000 to do that. And I'm like, hang on, so I'm pretty sure I can create a £15,000 grant program that is going to get way more views and followers, because like at the end of the day, people need metrics, right?
Yeah, the Web3 PR is just a scam, bro. It's parasitic on the entire industry.
And that's one of the things. Like, I definitely do think that Web3 needs a purge, right?
Yeah.
I like, as much as I'm all for like Web3 being the best thing, we need, like, I want that regs to get rid of all these shitfluencers, these scammers, put them in prison, and then people. I do think there's so many people that need to be thrown into prison because they're
Hook to a go.
Sorry.
Hook to a go.
Oh yeah.
Oh yeah. Oh yeah.
Yeah, 100%. I'm gonna be like, I've already bet on Polymarket that she should go to.
For real.
Yeah, just for $10.
Bro.
But like, no, but that's what I mean. These kind of people coming into our industry, and then look, I understand if you're investing in meme coins, it's your own fault. But like, at the end of the day, they have no idea what they're getting into. But they should have done her due diligence. And like, look, I watched the thing with CoffeeZilla grilling them, seeing like that they're actually selling their own tokens when they were denying it.
They sniped like 90% of the suppliers.
That's what I mean. And it's those kind of people. Look, I understand our industry should go, and meme coins are supposed to be the best way to get people in because it's the stories. Like, my friends are messaging me, do I invest into this shitcoin? I'm like, fuck me, bro. I don't have time because they're complaining, right? But like, we need a purge. And especially of these copy and paste products.
Know what you mean.
Because they're sapping the real innovation.
No, absolutely.
And the real teams that need the money don't get it.
Yeah, that's true. But I guess like the way that business and industry works, if something does work and there's another chain and it's got more funding and people are going to bring in more money, it makes sense for people to do it. You know, if there's a new chain, okay, great, I'm going to fork Aave again. I'm going to fork
don't give me a spin up another L2.
Yeah, another L2. It's like, there's like a 500 L2, 150 L2 or something like that.
Why?
VC money, bro. Come on.
They just need to invest it in the real project. That's the thing. Dump it all in like Berachain. Even though it's a fake chain, right? Fake chain. No, but I don't know. It's hard. Like, I genuinely think, like, I used to be so optimistic, but then sometimes I just speak to people. Like with this podcast, I've interviewed so many oracles, right? I'm friends with many different projects, and then sometimes I have people talk to me like at conferences and stuff, and they're telling me some stuff. I'm like, you're bullshitting me. Like, this. I know what you actually do because I've interviewed literally like the big Chronicle or Redstone, all those people, and I understand what they're talking. And then it's just I didn't understand how they get. And then they said we've raised 10 mil. I'm like, what? How? Like, that's what I mean. It's just I'm just so fed out.
Yeah. But at the end of the day, raising is a skill, and I think that
100%.
if you're well connected within that ecosystem, it's like even if you have the most dog shit idea, you can raise. But
like, go free if you do it. Like, that's what I mean. Like, at the end of the day, you're right. It's a skill.
And if you're connected in that ecosystem, that's an advantage in itself, right? That's getting connected and getting your foot in that door is it's an asset of itself.
No. How did you get into crypto?
How did I get into crypto?
Yeah.
I used to run this Minecraft faction server, and I wanted to avoid. There was this sort of third party which people had to pay through PayPal. PayPal was the biggest thing back then, and I was like, they were charging me a lot of fees, and I was like, okay, you can start sending me Cardano. It was either Cardano. I can't remember what it was. Cardano. Or was it?
That's awesome.
No, I don't think Cardano was out then. I'm not sure what it was. Maybe it was Cardano. Or was it
Dogecoin?
ETH or Bitcoin? It was one of
Something
them.
like that.
One of them. It was crypto. That's for sure. Though. But yeah.
Interesting.
There's
So
even
from
going to
Minecraft to
because-
crypto.
Yeah.
Bam.
Yeah.
My story is not that exciting. I was like, started my PhD. I was like
What are you studying?
bioengineering, aerosol science, essentially.
Aerosol science. What does aerosol mean?
So essentially, aerosol is anything in the air, like diseases,
Okay.
viruses, anything that could like
Okay.
what you're breathing out, right?
Okay, okay.
And like some people my professors won't like me saying this, but like at the end of the day, there is no real career for me, I believe,
Huh.
in sciences, because you just essentially have to work 40 hours in the lab, like a lab rat. You don't feel like you're appreciated. A lot of people take credit for you, and look, the salary is terrible.
What's your thesis?
Early warning detection systems of viral aerosols. So
Early warning.
Yes. So our team essentially designed aerosol capture devices, where essentially capture air
Yeah.
onto like a surface or a
Yeah.
plate or container, and then we analyze it to see if there is, let's say, a biological warfare agent or disease and stuff like
Okay.
that. So like it's a really interesting topic, and like my professors are amazing, like the whole thing, but I know I can retire in crypto in a few months. I mean, not 3 months, few years, right? I'd probably, and but like I genuinely do believe it, because like we're pushing, we're building, we're innovating,
Yeah.
and like I would have to be stuck 40 hours a week in an office for like the next 10, 20 years to actually maybe pay off a mortgage, get a house. And right now I work remotely anywhere in the world.
Yeah, yeah. No, I feel like academia is more of like if you really, really love it. I don't think you can really truly make money in academia. I think that, academia wasn't for me. I dropped out like a month ago or a month and a half ago.
What did you study?
Can't remember. It was an undergraduate program at UCL. It was economics with Eastern European studies.
Oh, interesting.
Russian and shit.
Bam.
I went to 2 lectures and then I was like, no.
You're like, nah, I'm building Ooga Booga.
No, I'm building Ooga Booga. No, running a venture-backed company and going to school at the same time was not easy. That's for sure.
I can imagine. Fucking hell.
But yeah, Stanley, thank you so much for talking to me today.
I appreciate it as well. Like, this is probably one of the most exciting conversation I've had in such a long time.
Oh, yeah?
I'm excited to see what Ooga Booga builds. I'm excited to, when Q7 comes around, maybe you have launched, and I get to experience all this exciting alpha that you bring around.
No, 100%. Yeah, great. Thank you.
I appreciate it. Thank you. Bam.